The grand hall of the Galactic Assembly Station stretched vast and bright, filled with beings from 1,000 different worlds. Ambassador Tovril of the Halcyon Dominion stood tall among them, his silver skin catching the light like polished metal. His people were known throughout the galaxy as the perfect warriors, beings who had evolved beyond the weakness of fear. For millions of years, the Halcyons had bred courage into their very bones. They felt no terror, no hesitation, no doubt. This made them superior to all other species, or so Tovril believed with absolute certainty. Today was an important day. The humans were presenting their case for membership in the Galactic Council. Tovril had reviewed their files with great interest. Humanity was a young species, barely 200 years into space travel. They came from a world they called Earth, a dangerous planet by galactic standards. But what fascinated Tovril most was their biology. The humans were primitives in the most fundamental way. They still experienced fear. The human delegation entered the chamber and Tovril studied them carefully. They walked upright on 2 legs, their skin various shades of brown and tan, their bodies covered in formal uniforms. The leader was a man named Captain Daewon Park. He had dark hair starting to gray at the temples and steady eyes that looked around the chamber without obvious nervousness. Behind him came Lieutenant Hana Choi, a woman with sharp features and quick movements. Engineer Sungmin Bae followed, a stocky man carrying data tablets. Their whole team numbered 12 in total. They looked so ordinary, so unremarkable, and yet Tovril had read their biological scans. These creatures produced adrenaline when threatened. Their hearts raced before danger. Their hands could tremble and their voices could shake. They felt fear like children, like animals. How could such beings ever be trusted with the responsibilities of council membership? Captain Park began his presentation. He spoke clearly in the common galactic language, his accent strange but understandable. He talked about Earth's history, about humanity's journey to the stars, about their desire to join the galactic community. He showed images of human cities, human art, human achievements. It was all very pleasant and very boring. Tovril waited patiently for his turn to speak. He had prepared his response carefully. When Captain Park finished and asked if there were questions, Tovril stood immediately. "I have reviewed your biological data with great care," Tovril said, his voice carrying easily through the chamber. "And I must speak plainly. Humans are not ready for council membership." The chamber grew quiet. Captain Park's expression did not change, but Tovril noticed the man's fingers tighten slightly on his data tablet. A sign of stress. How primitive. "Your species still experiences fear," Tovril continued. "Your bodies flood with stress chemicals at the first sign of danger. Your hearts race. Your hands shake. You hesitate. You doubt. These are weaknesses that the Halcyons eliminated from our biology 5 million years ago. How can beings who tremble before danger be trusted with important decisions? How can creatures ruled by fear call themselves brave?" Several other ambassadors murmured agreement. The Crithians nodded their massive heads. The Valtorians clicked their mandibles in approval. Fear was a primitive emotion after all. Most advanced species had found ways to control it or remove it entirely. Captain Park remained standing. He looked directly at Tovril, and the human's face showed something interesting. Not anger, not fear. Something else. Determination, perhaps. "Ambassador Tovril," Captain Park said quietly. "May I respond?" "Of course," Tovril said, gesturing graciously. "Let the human try to defend the indefensible." "You are correct that humans feel fear," Captain Park said. "We do not deny this. Our bodies do react to danger exactly as you described. Our hearts beat faster. Sometimes our hands shake. Sometimes our voices are not steady." He paused, looking around the chamber at all the assembled species. "But courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is action in spite of fear." Tovril almost laughed. "That is a pleasant philosophy, Captain. But philosophy does not change biology. When danger comes, your body betrays you. Your fear makes you weak, does it?" Captain Park asked. "Or does it make us careful? Does it make us think before we act? Does it make us understand the true cost of our choices?" "It makes you hesitate," Tovril said firmly. "And hesitation in battle means death. The Halcyons do not hesitate. We do not fear. We act with perfect clarity and perfect courage every time. This is why we have never lost a war. This is why we are the greatest warriors in the galaxy." Captain Park nodded slowly. "You have never lost a war. That is impressive. May I ask, Ambassador, how many wars have the Halcyons fought?" Tovril felt a flash of pride. 17 major conflicts in the last 1,000 years. We won every single one. And how many of those wars did you start? Captain Park asked quietly. The question caught Tovril off guard. What does that matter? War is war. Victory is victory. It matters, Captain Park said, because beings who feel no fear have no reason to avoid war. If you cannot fear death, if you cannot fear loss, then war has no cost to you. Not emotionally. You fight because you can, not because you must, and we fight because we are warriors, Tovril said, his voice rising. This is the purpose of the Halcyons. We are bred for battle. And humans are not, Captain Park said. We hate war, we fear it. We understand what it costs. And yet when we must fight, we do. We fight despite our fear. We fight knowing exactly how terrible it will be. Is that not a different kind of courage? Tovril shook his head. You speak in circles, Captain. You try to make weakness sound like strength. But the facts are clear. Your species is primitive. You are ruled by emotions that you cannot control. You are not ready for the responsibilities of the Council. Several ambassadors made sounds of agreement. Tovril saw the human delegation exchange glances. Lieutenant Hanachoi's jaw was tight. Engineer Sungmin Bei was looking at his feet. They were uncomfortable. They were uncertain. They were feeling emotions, probably fear and embarrassment. It proved Tovril's point perfectly. But Captain Park still stood straight. His voice remained steady. We respectfully disagree with your assessment, Ambassador. But we understand your concerns. We only ask that you judge us not on our biology, but on our actions. Give us a chance to prove ourselves. Perhaps, Tovril said, feeling generous in his victory. Time will tell if humans are capable of true courage. For now, I recommend that this vote be postponed until humanity can demonstrate that they are more than their primitive fears. The motion passed. The human delegation would have to wait for council membership. They would have to prove themselves worthy. Tovril watched them leave the chamber with their heads held high despite their defeat. Admirable in a way, he supposed. They at least had enough pride to walk with dignity. Lieutenant Hanachoi paused at the exit and looked back at Tovril. For just a moment their eyes met. The human woman's expression was unreadable. Then she turned and followed her captain out. Tovril felt satisfied. He had done the right thing. The galaxy could not be governed by beings who shook with fear at every challenge. True courage required fearlessness. The Halcyons understood this truth, and one day perhaps the humans would too. Or perhaps they never would. Perhaps fear was so deeply woven into human nature that they could never rise above it. If so, they would remain a minor species forever, watching from the edges while truly advanced civilizations made the important decisions. Tovril returned to his quarters on the station feeling the quiet certainty of superior biology. He had no way of knowing that in 3 days, everything he believed about courage would be shattered. He had no way of knowing that he would stand beside humans and watch them do the impossible. He had no way of knowing that he would learn what true courage really meant. For now he simply believed he had won an easy argument against a primitive species. He was wrong about many things, but he would learn. The galaxy would make sure of that. 3 days passed quietly on the Galactic Assembly Station. Tovril spent his time in meetings with other ambassadors, discussing trade agreements and border disputes. The humans kept to themselves mostly, working in their assigned quarters and speaking politely when they encountered other species in the corridors. Tovril saw Captain Daewon Park twice in those 3 days. Both times the human captain nodded respectfully and continued on his way without attempting conversation. Good. The human understood his place. On the morning of the 4th day, alarms began screaming through the station. Tovril rushed to the central command center along with dozens of other ambassadors. The massive view screen showed a moon, gray and pockmarked, orbiting a distant gas giant. Station Commander Velcris, a 4-armed Quilian, worked frantically at the controls. What is happening? Tovril demanded. Research Station Vexera 7, Velcris said, his translator rendering his clicking speech into common language. Complete system failure. The containment fields are collapsing. Tovril felt no fear at these words, but he understood their meaning. Vexera 7 was a research facility studying quantum anomalies, the strange tears in space that appeared near certain stellar objects. Very dangerous work. Very valuable work. And if the containment fields failed completely, the anomalies would expand uncontrollably. How bad? Asked Ambassador Thren of the Cooperative Worlds. Total destruction of the moon, Velcris said bluntly. The explosion will be visible from 3 systems away, and there are 847 researchers on that station. The command center fell silent. 847 lives. 23 different species. Some of the greatest scientific minds in the galaxy, all working together to understand the mysteries of quantum space. How long do we have? This was Captain Park. The human had entered the command center quietly and now stood near the back, his crew behind him. Velcris checked his instruments. 6 hours. Maybe less. The deterioration is accelerating. Can we evacuate them? Park asked. The anomalies are spreading, Velcris said. He brought up a new image on the view screen. The space around the moon rippled and twisted like water disturbed by stones. Sensors cannot function in that field. Shields are unreliable. Navigation is nearly impossible. Any ship that attempts to approach will be flying blind through spatial tears that can rip a vessel apart. Tovril studied the image carefully. He had fought in 17 wars, but he had never seen anything quite like this. The quantum anomalies appeared and disappeared randomly, creating zones of distorted space that moved unpredictably. A ship could be fine one moment and torn to pieces the next. Even for the Halcyons, this would be a challenge. We need volunteers, Velcris said. Ships capable of rescue operations. But I will not order anyone into that. The command center remained silent. Tovril could see the calculations happening behind the eyes of every ambassador present. Risk versus reward, danger versus duty. Most species were capable of feeling fear, and right now their fear was winning. But Tovril felt nothing. No fear, no hesitation. Only the clarity of purpose that came with perfect courage. The Eternal Blade will go, Tovril announced. His warship was docked at the station, fully crewed and ready. The Halcyons do not abandon those in need. We will retrieve all 847 researchers. Relief flooded the command center. Several ambassadors made grateful sounds. Velcris nodded his massive head in appreciation. Thank you, Ambassador, Velcris said. Every ship will help. How soon can you depart? 1 hour, Tovril said confidently. My crew is already preparing. The UESS Resilience will also volunteer. Captain Park stepped forward. His voice was calm and professional. We have rescue shuttles and trained personnel. We can assist. Tovril turned to look at the human. Park's face showed no obvious emotion. But Tovril had learned to read the subtle biological signs. The human's pupils were slightly dilated. His breathing was carefully controlled. His hands rested at his sides, but the fingers were tense. The human was afraid. Of course he was. His primitive biology was flooding his system with stress chemicals right now, telling him to run, to hide, to choose safety, and yet here he stood volunteering anyway. Your assistance is welcome, Captain, Tovril said graciously. He felt magnanimous. Let the humans come along. They could handle the easy tasks while the Halcyons did the real work. And perhaps watching true warriors in action would teach them something valuable. We depart in 1 hour then, Park said. My crew will be ready. The meeting dissolved into rapid planning. Coordinates were shared. Communication frequencies were established. Medical teams were put on standby. Through it all, Tovril noticed Captain Park speaking quietly with his crew. Lieutenant Hana Choi was running calculations on her data tablet. Engineer Sungmin Bae was checking equipment lists. Their movements were efficient and professional, but Tovril could see the tension in their bodies. They were scared. All of them. How could they possibly be effective while drowning in such primitive emotions? 58 minutes later, both ships departed the station. The Eternal Blade was a beautiful vessel, sleek and silver, designed for both war and ceremony. The UESS Resilience was uglier, more practical, covered in sensor arrays and docking ports. The human ship was smaller too, carrying perhaps a third of the crew that served on Tovril's warship. Tovril stood on his bridge, surrounded by his officers. Every one of them was calm and ready. Their silver skin seemed to glow under the bridge lights. They moved with perfect efficiency, no wasted motion, no nervous energy. This was what an advanced species looked like. Communications with human vessel established, his communications officer reported. Captain Park, Tovril said into the channel. We will lead. Follow our approach vector. When we reach the anomaly field, my shuttles will begin evacuation immediately. Your shuttles can assist once we have established safe routes. There was a brief pause before Park responded. Acknowledged, Ambassador. We will follow your lead. The 2 ships accelerated, leaving the station behind. The journey to Vexara 7 would take 3 hours at maximum speed. That left only 3 hours for the actual rescue once they arrived. It would be tight but possible. Tovril felt confident. His pilots were the best in the galaxy. They would fly through anything without hesitation. As they traveled, Tovril found himself monitoring the communication channel with the human ship. He told himself it was simply good tactics to stay informed about his allies. But truthfully, he was curious. How did primitives prepare for danger? What he heard was fascinating. The humans were talking constantly. Their chatter filled the communications channel. They discussed approach vectors and shuttle assignments and medical protocols. But woven through the professional talk were other things. Personal things. "My wife is going to kill me when she finds out about this," Engineer Sungmin Bei said at one point. "If you die, I am not explaining it to her," Lieutenant Hana Choi responded. "You can haunt her yourself." There was laughter. Actual laughter. They were flying toward almost certain death, and they were joking about it. "Remember your training." Captain Park's voice cut through the chatter. "Stay calm. Trust your instruments. We have done difficult things before. We will do this one too." "Yes, sir," came the chorus of responses. Tovril switched off the monitor. He did not understand humans at all. They filled their fear with noise and humor and useless emotional reassurances. The Halcyons needed none of that. They simply flew toward danger in perfect silence and perfect certainty. 2 hours and 47 minutes after departure, both ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The moon of Vexara 7 appeared before them, and Tovril finally understood why the situation was so desperate. The view screen showed chaos. The space around the moon rippled and writhed like something alive. Tiers in reality opened and closed, each one a wound in the fabric of space itself. Some were small, barely visible. Others were massive, swirling vortexes that could swallow a ship whole. And they moved. Constantly, unpredictably. The research station itself was breaking apart. Sections had already torn away, tumbling into the void. Tovril could see tiny figures in spacesuits desperately trying to seal breaches and shore up failing systems. They had maybe 2 hours left. Maybe less. "Status report," Tovril commanded. "Anomaly field extends 40,000 kilometers from the moon's surface," his science officer said. "Spatial distortions are random but concentrated near the station itself. Sensors are 93% ineffective inside the field. Shield effectiveness reduced to 40%. Launch all shuttles," Tovril ordered. "Full speed to the station. Begin evacuation immediately." "Sir," his tactical officer said carefully. "Recommend a slower approach." "The anomalies are obstacles to be overcome," Tovril interrupted. "The Halcyons do not creep in fear. Launch shuttles now." 12 Halcyon shuttles launched from the Eternal Blade, silver arrows streaking toward the dying station. Tovril watched with pride as his pilots flew without hesitation into the anomaly field. Beside them, 5 human shuttles launched from the Resilience. They moved much more slowly, almost tentatively. Tovril smiled. Soon the humans would see what true courage looked like. The first Halcyon shuttle entered the anomaly field at full speed. Tovril watched from his bridge, monitoring multiple screens that showed feeds from all 12 shuttles. His pilots flew with characteristic fearlessness, their hands steady on the controls, their voices calm as they reported their progress. "Shuttle 1 entering primary approach vector," the pilot announced. "Distance to station 38,000 kilometers. No obstacles visible. Shuttle 2 following," came another voice. "Maintaining formation. All systems normal." Tovril felt a surge of pride. This was what made the Halcyon superior. No hesitation, no doubt, just pure, perfect action. Then space tore open directly in front of Shuttle 1. The spatial tear appeared without warning, a wound in reality that twisted the view screen image into impossible shapes. The shuttle flew directly into it. There was no time to turn, no time to react. The Halcyon pilot never even slowed down because he felt no fear to make him cautious. The shuttle simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a silver shape against the black. The next moment gone. The spatial tear closed behind it, leaving no trace that a ship and 3 Halcyon warriors had ever been there at all. Tovril stared at the screen. His mind processed what had just happened, but his body gave him no emotional response. No shock, no grief. He simply understood that Shuttle 1 was destroyed and adjusted his calculations accordingly. "Shuttle 2, adjust your vector," he ordered calmly. Avoid the area where Shuttle 1 was lost. Understood, Shuttle 2's pilot responded, his voice as calm as Tovral's own. Shuttle 2 altered course slightly, angling away from where the tier had appeared. But the anomaly field was chaos. Spatial distortions opened and closed constantly, randomly. 30 seconds later, another tier opened. Shuttle 2 flew into it at full speed and vanished. Then Shuttle 5. Then Shuttle 8. Tovral watched his pilots die with perfect fearlessness. They flew at maximum speed because nothing in their biology told them to slow down. They charged forward because they felt no warning signals screaming at them to be careful. They trusted their courage, and their courage killed them. All shuttles reduce speed by 50%, Tovral ordered. The command felt strange coming from his mouth. Caution was not the Halcyon way, but watching his warriors fly to their deaths was not achieving the mission objective. The remaining 8 Halcyon shuttles slowed, but even at half speed they moved with confidence that the situation did not warrant. Another shuttle vanished, then another. Meanwhile, the human shuttles crept forward like frightened animals. Tovral switched his monitor to show the feed from the lead human shuttle. The pilot was a woman named Ji-Won Kang. Her biometric readings scrolled across the bottom of the screen, and they were alarming. Heart rate elevated to 140 beats per minute, breathing rapid and shallow, stress hormones flooding her system. By all biological measures, she was terrified, but she was succeeding. Spatial tear opening. 200 meters starboard, came the voice of her co-pilot, a man named Minho Ryu. His voice shook slightly as he spoke. I see it, Ji-Won responded. Her voice was tight with fear, but her hands moved the shuttle smoothly away from the danger. Adjusting course. How's our clearance? 50 meters and holding, Minho said. Another tier forming ahead. Small one. 300 meters. Can we go around? Negative. It's moving. Wait. It's closing. We're clear. The human shuttle inched forward, pausing when sensors detected anomalies, retreating when danger appeared too close, advancing only when the path seemed safe. It took them 40 minutes to cover the distance that the Halcyons had attempted to cross in 10. But the human shuttle made it. It reached the research station intact. Tovral watched in growing confusion as the pattern repeated. The human shuttles were slow, cautious, almost cowardly in their approach. Their pilots' biometric readings showed constant fear. Their voices on the communications channel shook with stress. They pulled back from dangers that a Halcyon would never have noticed, and they all arrived safely. By the time the first human shuttle docked with the research station, Tovral had lost 7 of his 12 shuttles. 5 remained, having finally learned from the humans to move slowly and carefully. But those 5 shuttles had only managed to evacuate 43 researchers between them. The humans with 5 shuttles had already loaded 120 researchers and were preparing to return through the anomaly field. This is Shuttle 1, Ji-Won Kang's voice came through the comm. We have 37 passengers. Beginning return journey. Tovral listened to the communications as the human shuttle began its careful journey back. He could hear everything. The pilots talked constantly, calling out every hazard, discussing every decision. Their fear was naked and obvious in every word. Tier opening port side. Distance 60 meters. I see it, adjusting. Heart rate spiking, taking deep breaths. Mine too. We're okay. Focus on the sensors. Another tier ahead. Big one, we need to wait. Waiting. Passengers, please remain calm. This is normal procedure. Normal. Minho laughed shakily. Sure, totally normal. They were terrified. Absolutely terrified. But they continued forward, meter by careful meter. When danger appeared, they stopped and waited. When the path cleared, they moved. They treated every spatial tear with tremendous respect, never assuming they could simply fly through safely. 28 minutes later, Ji-Won's shuttle emerged from the anomaly field intact. All 37 passengers were safe. Tovral made a decision that would have been impossible for him just hours ago. He opened a channel to Captain Park, who was coordinating the rescue from the Resilience's bridge. Captain Park, Tovral said, I request permission to observe your rescue operations from your bridge. There was a pause. You are welcome aboard, Ambassador, Park said finally. We will prepare a shuttle. That is unnecessary, Tovral said. I will transfer directly by transport beam. Moments later, Tovral materialized on the bridge of the UESS Resilience. The space was smaller than his own bridge, more cramped, filled with equipment and displays. Captain Park stood in the center, his eyes on the main view screen that showed the anomaly field. Lieutenant Hana Choi worked at a nearby console, running constant calculations. Engineer Sungmin Bae moved between stations, checking systems and making adjustments, and they were all afraid. Tovril could see it in every movement, every expression. Park's jaw was tight. Choi's hands trembled slightly as she worked. Bae kept wiping sweat from his forehead. "Ambassador," Park acknowledged without taking his eyes from the screen. "Welcome aboard." "Thank you, Captain," Tovril said. He positioned himself where he could observe without interfering. "I wish to learn from your methods." Park glanced at him briefly, something unreadable in the human's eyes. Then he returned his attention to the rescue operation. "Shuttle 2 reporting," came a voice over the comm. "We are loaded with 40 passengers. Beginning return." "Acknowledged, Shuttle 2, Park said. "Be safe, Taeyang." "Doing our best, Captain," the pilot Taeyang Moon responded. His voice was shaking. Really trying not to die here." "You will not die," Choi called out from her console. "I have plotted 17 safe routes. Follow my guidance and you will be fine." 17 routes that were safe 5 minutes ago, Taeyang said. "These tiers are moving, Hana. Nothing is guaranteed." "I know," Choi said quietly. Tovril saw her hands clench. "I know. Just trust the sensors. Trust your training." "Trusting," Taeyang said. "Also praying. And maybe crying a little." "Is crying allowed?" "Crying is allowed," Park said. There was something almost gentle in his voice. "Fear is allowed. Just keep flying." "Yes, sir." Tovril watched the human crew work. He watched Park grip the armrests of his command chair so hard his knuckles turned white. He watched Choi blink back tears as she calculated safe routes through space that was trying to kill them. He watched Bae mutter prayers in Korean under his breath as he monitored the shuttle systems, his whole body shaking. They were falling apart emotionally. Their fear was consuming them, and yet they did not stop. They did not run. They continued forward, task after task, shuttle after shuttle. "Shuttle 4, you have a tear forming directly ahead," Choi warned. "Stop your approach now." "Stopping," came the immediate response. "How long?" "Unknown. Could be seconds. Could be minutes." "Wait for my signal." The shuttle waited. Tovril could hear the pilot breathing heavily over the comm. Could hear whispered conversations in the background as passengers asked what was wrong. "The tier is expanding," Choi said, her voice tight. "Shuttle 4, reverse your position. Back away slowly." Reversing. "There is another tier forming behind them," Bae said suddenly, his voice jumping an octave. "Captain, they are being boxed in." Park leaned forward, studying the screen. Tovril could see the situation clearly. The shuttle was trapped between 2 spatial tiers with no safe route forward or backward. The pilot could try to go around, but the tiers were expanding. Soon there would be no room to maneuver. "Shuttle 4, Park said, his voice steady despite the terror that must be flooding his system. "Listen carefully. You are going to turn 90 degrees to port. Then you are going to move laterally at minimum speed. We will guide you through." "Captain," the pilot said. Tovril could hear the fear naked in that single word. "I cannot see a path." The rescue operation continued for another 90 minutes. Tovril remained on the bridge of the Resilience, watching the humans work with a fascination that bordered on obsession. He had spent his entire life believing that fearlessness was the ultimate virtue, the pinnacle of evolution. Now he was watching beings who could barely control their terror accomplish things his fearless warriors could not. The human shuttles made 23 runs into the anomaly field. 23 times the pilots flew into chaos with their hearts pounding and their hands shaking. 23 times they brought passengers back safely. Tovril's 5 remaining Halcyon shuttles managed 8 more runs under human guidance, moving slowly and carefully as instructed, following routes plotted by Lieutenant Hana Choi's calculations. The final count was stark. The humans had evacuated 720 researchers. The Halcyons had saved 84, and 43 of those were from before Tovril ordered his pilots to follow human methods. 7 Halcyon pilots were dead. 18 warriors in total, counting the crew members. All because they felt no fear to make them careful. All because their courage was just the absence of an emotion, nothing more. "Final shuttle approaching," Lieutenant Choi announced. Her voice was hoarse from hours of constant communication. "Shuttle 5 with pilot Jiwon Kang. 42 passengers aboard." "Acknowledged," Captain Park said. He had not left his command chair in 3 hours. Tovril could see the exhaustion in the human's face, the lines of stress carved deep around his eyes and mouth. On the view screen, the research station was dying. Whole sections had torn away. The remaining structure groaned and twisted under forces that should not exist in normal space. The anomaly field had grown larger, more chaotic. Spatial tiers opened and closed like mouths trying to swallow the moon itself. G1, you have maybe 10 minutes, Choi said quietly. The containment is failing faster now. I see it, G1 responded. Her shuttle was visible on the screen, a small shape against the chaos. We are clear of the docking port. Beginning departure. Tiers are forming all around you, Engineer Sungmin Bae said, leaning over his console. This is bad. This is very bad. I can see them, G1 said. Her breathing was rapid over the comm. Path ahead looks... I do not know. Hana, I need a route. Working on it, Choi said. Her hands flew over the controls, but Tovril could see the data displayed on her screen. There was no safe route. The spatial tiers had multiplied, forming a maze that shifted and changed every second. Any path that looked safe now could be deadly in moments. Hana? G1's voice was tight. Please tell me you have something. Choi stopped. Her hands hovered over the controls. I am trying. The field is too unstable. Every route I plot closes before you can reach it. Silence on the bridge. Tovril watched Captain Park lean forward, studying the screen with desperate intensity. The human's biometric readings would be off the charts right now, Tovril thought. Fear and stress and desperate worry for his pilot and the 42 lives in her cargo hold. G1, Park said finally. You will have to feel your way through. Trust your instincts. Trust your training. We will guide you as much as we can, but this will come down to your skill. Understood, G1 said. There was a pause. Captain, my hands are shaking. I can barely hold the controls steady. I know, Park said, but you are still the best pilot we have. Shake all you want. Just keep flying. A sound came over the comm that might have been a laugh or a sob. Yes, sir. The shuttle began moving forward. Tovril watched G1 navigate through a nightmare. Spatial tiers appeared directly in her path, and she veered away with milliseconds to spare. Her shuttle rolled and dove, reversed and accelerated, moving through three-dimensional space with a grace born of pure terror. She was completely, utterly afraid, and it made her brilliant. Tier-forming portside, Bae shouted. I see it. G1's voice was ragged. Going starboard. Wait, there is another one. I need to go up. Going up. 3 tiers directly ahead, Choi said. G1, you need to stop. Cannot stop, G1 gasped. There is a tier forming behind me. It is expanding. If I stop, it will catch me. Tovril saw the situation on the screen. The shuttle was being herded, pushed forward by a spatial tear that was growing rapidly. Ahead were 3 more tiers forming a wall of twisted space. Behind was death. Forward was death. There was no way out. Emergency transport, Bae said suddenly. We can beam them out. The pilot and passengers. Not through that interference, Choi said. Her face was pale. The anomalies would scatter the beam. We would kill them. Then what? Bae's voice rose. We just watch her die? No, Park said. The word came out hard, final. Sungmin, can you extend a tractor beam into the field? Bae turned to stare at the captain. Sir, extending a tractor beam that far into an unstable anomaly field could tear this ship apart. The power feedback alone. Can you do it? Park interrupted. Bae swallowed hard. Tovril saw the man's hands trembling, saw sweat running down his face. The engineer was terrified of what the captain was asking him to do. Terrified of killing everyone on the Resilience. Terrified of failing. Just absolutely consumed with fear. Yes, Bae whispered. Yes, sir. I can do it, then prepare the beam, Park said. G1, we are going to pull you out. Get as close to the edge of the field as you can. We will do the rest. Captain, G1 said, and her voice was breaking now. If this fails... It will not fail, Park said firmly. I will not lose you. Sungmin will not fail. We are bringing you home. Bae was already working, his hands flying over the controls despite how badly they shook. He was muttering in Korean, a constant stream of what Tovril assumed were prayers or curses or both. Tears ran down the engineer's face, but he did not stop working. Tractor beam ready, Bae said finally. Captain, I need you to understand. This could kill us all. I know, Park said quietly. Do it anyway. Bae's finger hovered over the activation control. Tovril saw the man's whole body shaking. saw him whisper something that might have been goodbye to someone far away. Then Bay pressed the control. The Resilience shuddered. Alarms screamed across the bridge. Power readings spiked into dangerous levels as the tractor beam extended into the anomaly field, reaching through twisted space toward the small shuttle. "I have her," Bay gasped, locking on. "G1, cut your engines now." The shuttle's engines went dark. The tractor beam caught it, the invisible hand reaching through chaos to grab hold. But the power feedback was enormous. The Resilience shook violently. Sparks flew from consoles. Crew members grabbed onto anything they could reach to stay standing. "Structural integrity at 70%. Someone shouted, 60%. "Hold it," Park commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Sungmin, hold that beam." "Trying." Bay's voice was a scream. "The power curve is exponential. I cannot hold it much longer." The spatial tiers ahead of G1's shuttle expanded, reaching for her like grasping fingers. The tear behind her grew larger, closer. She was caught between them, only the tractor beam preventing her from being pulled into destruction. 40% structural integrity. "The beam is failing," Bay shouted. "I am losing her." "No," Park said. He moved to Bay's station, placing his hand on the engineer's shoulder. "You are not losing her. Reroute power from weapons, from life support if you must. But you are not losing her." Bay nodded, not trusting his voice. His hands moved over the controls, making adjustments that Tovril could not follow. More alarms screamed. The lights on the bridge dimmed as power was pulled from non-essential systems. The tractor beam held. Slowly, meter by meter, the beam pulled the shuttle backward. Away from the waiting tiers, away from certain death. The Resilience groaned and shook, but the beam held. "She is clear," Choi shouted. "The shuttle is clear of the primary anomaly field." "Releasing tractor beam," Bay said. His voice was barely audible. The beam disengaged and the shuttle drifted free, intact and whole. "G1," Park said into the comm. "Welcome home." There was no response for a moment. Then came the sound of sobbing. "Thank you," G1 whispered. "Oh God, thank you." "You can cry all you want once you dock," Park said gently. "But right now I need you to bring those 42 passengers in safely." "Yes, sir." The shuttle's engines reactivated, and it began moving toward the Resilience under its own power. Smooth and steady, the view screen flared white. The research station exploded as the containment fields finally failed completely. The moon cracked apart, becoming an expanding cloud of debris and energy. If anyone had still been on that station, they would have died instantly. But no one was. 804 researchers were safe. Not all 847 that had been there originally, but every single person who could be saved. The humans had saved them. The humans with their shaking hands and their tears and their terror. Tovril stood on the bridge of the Resilience and watched Captain Park finally release his grip on the command chair. The human's hands were indented with marks where he had held so tightly for so long. Park looked down at his hands, seemed almost surprised to see them shaking. "Captain," Lieutenant Choi said quietly. "Are you all right?" Park looked up at her. For just a moment, his face showed everything he had been holding back. The fear, the stress, the desperate terror of watching his pilot trapped and knowing he might lose her. Tovril stood silently in the corner of the Resilience's bridge and watched Captain Daewon Park sit with his head in his hands. The human captain's shoulders shook with silent tremors. Around him, his crew quietly went about their duties, giving their commander space to process what they had all just survived. Lieutenant Hana Choi wiped tears from her face as she coordinated shuttle docking procedures. Engineer Sungmin Bay slumped in his chair, staring at nothing, his hands still shaking so badly he could not work the controls. These were not the actions of superior warriors. The Halcyons would never break down like this. They would never weep or tremble or show such obvious weakness, and yet these humans had just accomplished the impossible. They had saved 804 lives while Tovril's fearless pilots had managed less than 100. Something fundamental had shifted in Tovril's understanding of the universe. He had spent his entire life believing one thing, and in the space of a few hours that belief had been completely shattered. After several minutes, Captain Park raised his head. His eyes were red, but his breathing had steadied. He noticed Tovril watching him and made no attempt to hide what he was feeling. "Ambassador," Park said quietly, "thank you for observing. I hope you learned what you came here to learn." "I did," Tovril said. He found himself speaking slowly, choosing words carefully. "Captain, I must ask you something. How do you function while experiencing such intense fear? Park considered the question. We don't have a choice. The fear is there whether we want it or not. So we feel it, we acknowledge it, and then we do what needs to be done anyway. But it must be debilitating, Toveril said. I saw your biometric readings. Your body was in a state of extreme stress for nearly 4 hours. How did you give clear orders? How did you make rational decisions? The fear makes us careful, Park said. It makes us think before we act. It reminds us that what we're doing is dangerous, that lives are at stake. Without fear, would we respect the danger? Would we take the time to plan carefully? Or would we simply charge forward like... He stopped, seeming to catch himself. Like my pilots did, Toveril finished. You may say it, Captain. It is the truth. My warriors flew without fear and it killed them. They did not respect the danger because they could not fear it. Park nodded slowly. Fear is a tool, Ambassador. A very old tool that evolution gave us to keep us alive. We have learned not to let it control us, but we also do not try to eliminate it. That would be like cutting off our own arm because it sometimes gets tired. But the emotional cost, Toveril pressed. I watched you and your crew suffering. I saw you in pain from the stress. How can that be superior to simply not feeling fear at all? Because we remember, Lieutenant Choi said suddenly. She had been listening to the conversation. We remember what fear feels like. We remember what it costs to face it. And that memory makes us, I don't know, more careful, more respectful of danger, more unwilling to throw lives away unnecessarily. You feel the weight of your decisions, Toveril said, understanding dawning. When you gave orders that sent your pilots into danger, you felt fear for them. You felt responsibility. If they had died, you would have suffered emotionally. Yes, Park said simply. Command is not easy for humans. Every order that puts someone at risk costs us something emotionally. We carry that weight. And yet you give the orders anyway, Toveril said, despite the pain it causes you. Because it's necessary, Park said. Because lives depend on it. Because sometimes the only way forward is through the fear. The bridge doors opened and pilot Jiwon Kang entered. Her face was blotchy from crying and her hands still trembled, but she walked straight to Captain Park and saluted. Shuttle 5 secured, Captain, she said, her voice rough. All 42 passengers delivered safely to medical. Excellent work, Jiwon, Park said. You flew brilliantly today. I was terrified the entire time, Jiwon said. A sound escaped her that might have been a laugh. I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to get those passengers killed. I could barely hold the controls. I know, Park said gently. And you saved them all anyway. That is what courage looks like. Jiwon nodded, not trusting herself to speak further. She saluted again and left the bridge, probably heading to her quarters to finally let herself fall apart in private. Toveril watched her go. In his culture, such an obvious display of weakness would be shameful, but he was beginning to understand that humans measured things differently. They did not see fear as weakness. They saw it as a challenge to overcome, and the overcoming was what made them strong. Captain Park, Toveril said formally, I request permission to return to my ship. I have much to consider. Of course, Ambassador, Park said. Thank you for your assistance today. Your pilots followed our guidance well once they learned to trust it. They are dead, Captain. 7 pilots and 11 crew. Dead because I ordered them to charge forward without caution. Dead because I believed fearlessness was the same as courage. Park met his eyes. I'm sorry for your loss, Ambassador, truly. But they helped save lives. Their sacrifice mattered. Toveril transported back to the Eternal Blade. His remaining crew greeted him with the calm professionalism expected of Halcyons. No one wept for the dead. No one trembled with relief at surviving. They simply reported status and awaited new orders. It was exactly what Toveril had always valued about his people. Now it felt hollow. The journey back to the Galactic Assembly Station took 3 hours. Toveril spent that time reviewing the mission recordings, watching his pilots die again and again. Watching them fly confidently into death because nothing in their biology warned them to slow down. Watching the human pilots shake and cry and succeed. He thought about the conversation he'd had with Captain Park just days ago. Park had said that courage was action in spite of fear. Toveril had dismissed it as primitive philosophy. Now he understood it was profound truth. The Halcyons had no courage at all. They had fearlessness, which was just the absence of an emotion. True courage required fear to exist first so it could be overcome. His people had spent millions of years believing they were the bravest species in the galaxy, when in fact they had never experienced bravery at all. When both ships docked at the station, Tovril immediately requested an emergency session of the Galactic Assembly. The request was granted. 6 hours later, the Grand Chamber was filled again with ambassadors from 1,000 worlds. Tovril stood in the center of the chamber, the spotlight on him. He had prepared no speech. He would simply speak truth. 3 days ago, he began, I stood in this chamber and argued against human membership in the Council. I said that humans were primitive because they felt fear. I said they could not be trusted with important responsibilities because their emotions made them weak. I was wrong about everything. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Tovril raised his hand for silence. Today I witnessed true courage for the first time in my life. We responded to a crisis at Research Station Vexara 7. 847 beings needed rescue from a failing station, surrounded by deadly spatial anomalies. I took my best pilots, warriors trained in the finest Halcyon traditions, and I sent them into danger without fear or hesitation. Tovril paused, letting the weight of his next words settle in his mind before speaking them, and I watched them die. 7 shuttles destroyed, 18 Halcyon warriors killed. They flew into death without caution because they felt no fear to warn them. They respected no danger because they could not feel terror. Their fearlessness, which I always believed was our greatest strength, became the weakness that killed them. The chamber was completely silent now. Every ambassador watched him with intense focus. The humans saved 804 lives, Tovril continued. Their pilots were terrified. I monitored their biological readings. I heard their voices shake. I watched their hands tremble on the controls. They were consumed by fear, and yet they flew into danger anyway. Again and again, 23 times. They succeeded because their fear made them careful, because their terror taught them to respect the danger, because they understood that what they were doing could kill them. And they did it anyway. Tovril looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many ambassadors as he could. I stood on the bridge of the human ship Resilience. I watched Captain Daewon Park command his crew while his body shook with stress. I watched Engineer Sungmin Bae risk his life and his ship to save a pilot trapped in the anomaly field, tears running down his face the entire time. I watched them suffer emotionally in ways that Halcyons never could. And I finally understood what courage really is. He turned to where the human delegation sat. Captain Park watched him calmly, his expression neutral and professional. But Tovril thought he saw understanding in the human's eyes. Courage is not the absence of fear, Tovril said. It is action in spite of fear. True courage requires being afraid and doing what is necessary anyway. The Halcyons have no courage. We have never had courage. We have only had fearlessness, and fearlessness is nothing special. It is just the lack of an emotion, nothing more. Tovril drew himself up to his full height. I stand before this assembly and admit that I was completely, fundamentally wrong. Humanity does not need more time to prove themselves. They have already proven something that many of us have never experienced.